Speaker of the National Assembly, Ms. Thandi Modise, the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Mr. Amos Masondo, Deputy President David Mabuza, the Chief Justice Mogoeng, and esteemed members of the judiciary, former President Thabo Mbeki and Sis Zanele Mbeki, former President Kgalema Motlanthe and Sis Gugu Motlanthe, former Deputy President F.W. de Klerk and Mrs. de Klerk, former Speaker of the National Assembly, Ms. Baleka Mbete and Mr. Khomu, President of the Pan-African Parliament, His Excellency Mr. Roger Nkodo Deng, UN Women South African Representative, Ms. Anne Kituku Shongwe, Isitwalandwe, Ubabu Andrew Mlangeni. Ministers and deputy ministers, premiers and speakers of provincial legislatures, President of SALGA and executive mayors, Governor of the South African Reserve Bank, Mr. Leseja Kganyago, heads of Chapter 9 institutions, leaders of faith-based organizations, leaders of academic and research institutions, members of the diplomatic corps, invited guests, honorable members of the National Assembly and honorable members of the National Council of Provinces, and fellow South Africans. Ditama udumelisa batho bote bane babafano na hayani bingelela bonke abantu abasekhaya nalapha nisheweta abantu hinkwavo bala Afrika Dzonga lava nga le kaya na lava va nga ri la. Ke dumelisa batho kaofela ba South Africa ba leng ko gae le ba leng teng mona. It is 30 years since Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela walked out of the gates of Victor Verster prison, a moment in our history that signaled, perhaps more vividly than any other, that freedom was at hand. As he stood on the balcony of the Cape Town City Hall to address the masses who had come in their tens of thousands to welcome him, he said, "Our march to freedom is irreversible. We must not allow fear to stand in our way," close quotes. Now, 30 years later, as we continue our onward march to improve the lives of our people, as we confront great challenges, as we endure troubled times, we too cannot allow fear to stand in our way. We must forge ahead, permitting neither adversity nor doubt to divert us. As we gather to reflect on the state of our nation, we are joined by the family of Basil February, a courageous young freedom fighter who lost his life in Zimbabwe in the Wankie campaign in 1967. For half a century, his resting place, like those of several of his comrades, has until now remained unknown. His contribution, his sacrifice has never been forgotten. This evening, we gather here humbled by the memories of those men and women who gave their lives for our freedom, deeply aware of the great responsibility we carry to realize their dreams. There are times when we have fallen short. There are times when we have made mistakes, but we remain unwavering in our determination to build a society that is free and equal and at peace. Our history tells us that when we are united in peace and when we are united in prayer and in faith, we can conquer all obstacles and turn our country into a place in which all feel free, safe, and comfortable. It is that spirit that we now approach this present moment. Our country is facing a stark reality. Our economy has not grown at any meaningful rate for over a decade. Even as jobs are created, the rate of unemployment continues to deepen. The recovery of our economy has stalled as persistent energy shortages have disrupted businesses and also people's lives. Several state-owned enterprises are in distress, and our public finances are under severe pressure. It is you, the people of South Africa, who carry this burden, confronted by rising living costs, unemployment, unable to escape poverty, hopelessness, and unable to realize our potential as a people. Yet at the same time, there is another reality, another part to our own reality. It is the reality of a youthful population that has more access to education than ever before, and which is achieving steadily improving outcomes. It is the reality of 2.4 million children who are now in early childhood development and preschool. It is about the reality of the 81% of learners who passed matric last year, with an increasing proportion coming from rural and township schools. And for this great achievement, we ought to applaud the class of 2019. Our reality is also that of the 720,000 students who received state funding for TVET colleges and universities last year. This funding has increased from 11.2 billion in 2016 to 35 billion rand in 2020. It is about the 6.8 million South Africans who today know their HIV status, about the 5 million people who have been initiated on antiretrovirals treatment, and the 4.2 million people whose HIV viral load is, as a consequence, undetectable. These are not just statistics. These are the lives of ordinary South Africans that have been improved. And they are signs of progress. Our reality is also about that of unbounded potential that we have, of a soil that is rich in minerals and in a diversity of plant and animal life that has few equals in the world, of a deep capital base, extensive infrastructure, sound laws and robust institutions, of a rich, diverse, young and talented people. Tonight, we're joined by Zozibini Tunzi, whose ascendance to the Miss Universe title is a reminder of our potential. And there she is. There is Zozibini. A young woman from the deep rural areas of our country who has risen to achieve greatness against all odds. We also welcome Springbok captain Siya Kolisi, who led a group of determined and united South Africans to become the 2019 World Rugby Champions. And this I saw for myself because I was there. We are also joined this evening by another remarkable young person, Ms. Sinoyolo Kumba, a grade 11 learner from Lenasia South, who decided to write me a letter and say, President, I want to participate in the writing of your State of the Nation address. There she is. Sinoyolo spent much of yesterday helping me to write this State of the Nation address. So, if you like all the brilliant ideas, you can ascribe to her tonight. Her intellect, her social awareness, her passion, and her diligence gave me great confidence in the future of this country. In my first two addresses to the nation, I spoke at length about the necessity of social compacting and the great responsibility we shoulder as government to drive collaboration and consensus. In 1994, we chose the path of negotiation, of compromise and peaceful settlement instead of a path of hatred and revenge. Our history and contemporary experience has taught us that if we are to achieve what we set out to do, we must focus on what unites us instead of what divides us. The greatest strength of our constitutional democracy and the reason it has endured is because we have been able to forge broad-based coalitions and social compacts, be they with business, labor, special interest groups, or even wider society. Achieving consensus and building social compacts is not a demonstration of weakness. It is the very essence of who we are as South Africans. That is why over the past 2 years, we have been hard at work seeking to forge and build consensus around our economic recovery. In his inaugural address on the 10th of May in 1994, President Mandela said, "Today we enter into a covenant that we shall build a society in which all South Africans, both black and white, will be able to walk tall, without fear in their hearts, assured of their inalienable right to human dignity," close quotes. This government remains irrevocably committed to upholding that covenant. It is a covenant that is rooted in the strategic objective of our National Development Plan, which is aimed at eliminating poverty and reducing inequality by 2030. Let us frankly admit that the government cannot solve our economic challenges alone. Even if we were to marshal every single resource at our disposal and engage on a huge expenditure of public funds, we would not alone be able to guarantee employment to the millions of people who are today out of work. What we have achieved together. Over the course of the last 2 years since I first stood here to deliver a State of the Nation, we have worked to forge compacts among South Africans to answer the many challenges before us. Through the Job Summit, we brought labor, business, government, and communities together to find solutions to the unemployment crisis. And we continue to meet at the beginning of every month when the Deputy President and myself meet together with our social partners at NEDLEC to find ways of removing blockages and drive interventions that will save jobs and create new jobs. We have come together as government and civil society, as communities and faith-based groupings to confront another huge challenge that faces our country, which is the violence that is perpetrated by men against South African women. We have brought business, labor, and government together to craft master plans for those industries that have the greatest potential for growth. We have come together as different spheres of government, as different state entities, as business associations, community groups, under a new district development model that is fundamentally changing our approach to local development. We have been building social compacts because it is through partnership and cooperation that we can have progress. Together, over these last 2 years, we have worked to stabilize our economy and build a foundation for future growth. We have been deliberate in rebuilding institutions and removing impediments to investments. We have acted decisively against state capture and fought back against corruption. We have steadily improved the reach of education, improved the quality of health care, and tended the basic needs of the poor. Yet, we have to say that has not been enough. It has not been enough to free our economy from the grim inheritance of our past, nor from the mistakes that we ourselves have made. It has not been enough to spare us from the debilitating effects of load shedding, nor from an unstable and subdued global economy. And so we find ourselves today at a decisive moment. We have a choice. We can succumb to the many and difficult protracted problems that confront us, or we can confront them with resolve and determination and with action. Because we choose to confront our challenges, our immediate, vital, overarching task is to place our economy on a path of inclusive growth. Without growth, there will be no jobs, and without jobs, there will be no meaningful improvement in the lives of our people. So this State of the Nation address is therefore about inclusive growth. It is about the critical actions that we need to take this year to build a capable state and place our economy on the path of recovery. This year, we fix the fundamentals. We pursue critical areas of growth, and we ensure excellence in planning and execution in government. For over a decade, South Africans have had to contend with the effects of constrained energy supply. I've spoken extensively about the critical role that Eskom plays in our economy and our country, and in the livelihoods of every South African. The load shedding of the last few months has had a debilitating effect on our country, on our economy, and on our people. It has severely set back our efforts to rebuild the economy and to create jobs. Every time it occurs, it disrupts people's lives, causing frustration, inconvenience, and hardship. At its core, Load shedding is the inevitable consequence of Eskom's inability over many years, due to debt, lack of capacity, mismanagement, and state capture to service its power stations. The reality that we will need to accept is that in order for Eskom to undertake the fundamental maintenance necessary to improve the reliability of supply, load shedding, unfortunately, will remain a possibility for the immediate future. Where load shedding is unavoidable, it must be undertaken in a manner that is predictable and minimizes disruption and the cost to firms and households. Over the next few months, as Eskom works to restore its operational capabilities, we will be implementing measures that will fundamentally change the trajectory of energy generation in our country. We are taking the following measures to rapidly and significantly increase generation capacity outside of Eskom. The Section 34 ministerial determination will be issued by the Minister of Energy, Mineral Resources and Energy, shortly to give effect to the Integrated Resource Plan of 2019, enabling the development of additional grid capacity from renewable energy, natural gas, hydropower, battery storage, as well as coal. We will initiate the procurement of emergency power from projects that can deliver electricity into the grid within 3 to 12 months from approval. The National Energy Regulator will continue to register small-scale distributed generation for own use of under 1 megawatt, for which no license is required. The National Energy Regulator will ensure that all applications by commercial and industrial users to produce electricity for own use above 1 megawatt are processed within the prescribed 120 days. It should be noted that there is now no limit to install capacity above 1 megawatt. We will also open bid window 5 of the Renewable Energy IPP and work with producers to accelerate the completion of window 4 projects. We will negotiate supplementary power purchase agreements to acquire additional capacity from existing wind and solar plants. We will also put in place measures to enable municipalities in good standing to procure their own power from independent power producers. Now, in line with the roadmap announced last year, Eskom has started with the process of divisionalizing 3 operating activities: generation, transmission, and distribution, each of which will have its own board and management structures. The social partners organized under NEDLEC have been meeting, deliberating, and discussing a number of proposals over the last 2 weeks to find agreement on the principles of what they call a social compact on electricity. This is a historic and unprecedented development in our country, since it demonstrates the commitment of all social partners to take the necessary actions and make the necessary sacrifices to secure our energy needs. Through this compact, the social partners seek an efficient, productive and fit-for-purpose Eskom that generates electricity at affordable prices for communities and industries. This requires both a drastic reduction in costs, including a review of irregular contracts and measures to mobilize resources that will reduce Eskom's debt and inject fresh capital where needed. The social partners, who are trade unions, federations, business, community-based organizations, and government, are committed to mobilizing funding to address Eskom financial crisis in a financially sustainable manner. They would like to do this in a manner that does not in any way, form, or shape put workers' pensions at risk, and that does not compromise the integrity of the financial system. Now, while they work to finalize this agreement, the reality is that our energy system will remain constrained until new energy generation comes on stream. Through these immediate measures and the work underway, which is being led by the Deputy President, to fundamentally restructure our electricity industry, we will achieve a secure supply of reliable, affordable, and ultimately sustainable energy. We undertake this decisive shift in our energy trajectory at a time when mankind, or humankind rather, faces its greatest existential threat in the form of climate change. Yesterday, I met a young lady called Ayaka Melitafa, a young climate activist from Eastern Rivier who attended the World Economic Forum in Davos this year to call on world leaders to stand firmly for climate justice. Ayaka asked me to make sure that no African child is left behind in the transition to low-carbon, climate-resilient, and sustainable society. And it is a promise I intend to keep because I made that promise to her. The Presidential Commission on Climate Change will ensure that as we move towards a low-carbon growth trajectory, that we leave no one behind. We will finalize the Climate Change Bill, which provides for a regulatory framework for the effective management of the inevitable climate change impacts by enhancing adaptive capacity, strengthening resilience, and reducing vulnerability to climate change, and as well as identifying new industrial opportunities in the green economy. We need to fix our public finances. Low levels of growth mean that we are not generating enough revenue to meet our expenses. Our debt is heading towards unsustainable levels, and spending is misdirected towards consumption and debt servicing rather than infrastructure and productive activity. We cannot continue along this path, nor can we afford to stand still. When he delivers his budget speech 2 weeks from now, the Minister of Finance will outline a series of measures to reduce spending and improve composition. We are engaged with Labour and other stakeholders on measures that we need to take to contain the public wage bill and reduce wastage. Efforts to reduce government spending, to prioritize resources more effectively, and improve the efficiency of our tax system are important, but they are insufficient. Contributions towards stabilizing our public finances. Achieving sustainability will ultimately require us to address structural challenges in the economy that raise the cost of living and doing business. By working with the Auditor General to reduce irregular expenditure, by shifting government spending from consumption expenditure to investment in infrastructure, we aim to improve the state of our public finances. National Treasury and the Reserve Bank are working together to ease pressure on business and consumers. We have decided to establish a sovereign wealth fund as a means to preserve and grow the national endowment of our nation, giving practical meaning to the injunction that the people shall share in the country's wealth. We are also proceeding with the establishment of a state bank as part of our effort to extend access to financial services to all South Africans. The Minister of Finance will provide details on this in his budget. We will be undertaking far-reaching economic reform measures that will include those that are contained in the paper produced by the National Treasury entitled Economic Transformation, Inclusive Growth and Competitiveness. This year, we are moving from the stabilization of state-owned enterprises to repurposing those strategic companies to support growth and development. After years of state capture, corruption and mismanagement, we are working to ensure that all SOEs are able to fulfill their developmental mandate and that they should be financially sustainable. In consultation with the Presidential SOE Council, we will undertake a process of rationalization of our state-owned enterprises and ensure that they serve strategic, economic, and developmental purposes. The extent of state capture and corruption and mismanagement in SOEs is possibly best demonstrated at South African Airways, which was placed in business rescue late last year. The business rescue practitioners are expected to unveil their plans for restructuring the airline in the next few weeks. In the interest of South Africa's aviation industry and our economy, it is essential that a future restructured airline is commercially and operationally sustainable and is not dependent on further government funding. A key priority this year is also to fix the commuter rail, which is vital to the economy and to the quality of the life of our people. Our rail network daily transports hundreds of thousands of commuters to and from work. We are modernizing PRASA rail network. The Central Line in the Western Cape and the Mabopane Line in Pretoria have been closed for essential refurbishment and upgrades. We are investing 1.4 billion rand in each of these lines to provide a safe, reliable, and affordable service. Work is underway on other lines, which includes station upgrades, parkway replacements, new signaling systems, and overhead electrical traction upgrades. As we work to fix the capabilities of the state, we know that growth and job creation will in large measure be driven by the private sector. We are therefore building an operating environment that is favorable to doing business. Working together with our social partners, we have continued to address several issues that have been barriers to job creation. Some of those issues are issues such as water use licenses, which are so essential to operations on farms, in factories, in mines, and these have previously taken an inordinately long time to process. Sometimes some corporations have waited up to 3 to 5 years just to get water use licenses. We are now able to announce that water use licenses will now be issued within 90 days instead of 3 years. It also used to take months to have a company registered. Through the Biz Portal platform, one can now register a company in 1 day, register for UIF and SARS, and even open a bank account. One of the challenges that we've been facing is the congestion and the inefficiency of our ports. This has been raised over and over again by business who need to import and export goods. Now, during the course of this year, we will undertake a fundamental overhaul of Durban Port, the third largest container terminal in the Southern Hemisphere, to reduce delays as well as costs. The most significant contribution we can make to inclusive growth is in the development of appropriate skills and capabilities. The investments we make now in early childhood development and early school learning will yield great economic benefits in the next 2 decades and beyond. But there are immediate interventions that we are making to improve the quality and the relevance of the educational outcomes. We're making progress with the introduction of the 3-stream curriculum model, heralding a fundamental shift in focus towards more vocational and technical education. Various technical vocational specializations have already been introduced in 550 schools, and 67 schools are now piloting the occupational stream. We are building 9 new TVET colleges this year in Sterkspruit, Aliwal North, Graaff-Reinet, Ngungunqushe, and in the Eastern Cape, and in Umzimkhulu, Greytown, Msinga, Nongoma, in KwaZulu-Natal. Through bilateral student scholarship agreements we have signed with other countries, we are steadily building a substantial cohort of young people who go overseas each year for training in critical skills. We have seen the impact this can have when we just look at one aspect of this training that we've been offering to the young people of our country. The Nelson Mandela Fidel Castro Medical Training Program in Cuba has produced over 1,200 medical doctors. And these are young people who come from poor families, the townships and the rural areas, who would ordinarily never have had an opportunity to go into Wits, Cape Town, Pretoria, and all that. They are now being trained and coming back as doctors. A further 640 students are expected to graduate in December this year. Now, this program alone is a living monument and testament to these 2 great revolutionaries, Fidel Castro and Nelson Mandela, and we thank them. Last year, I spoke about our plan to issue tablet computers to school students. The process of distributing these is underway. We said that every 10-year-old needs to be able to read for meaning. Our early reading programs are gathering momentum. This year, we will be introducing coding and robotics in grade R to 3 in 200 schools, with a plan to introduce this on a more universal basis in 2022. We have decided to establish a new university of science and innovation in Ekurhuleni. Now, Ekurhuleni is the only metro in our country that does not have a university. They will have their own university now. This will enable young people in Ekurhuleni to be trained in high-impact and cutting-edge technological innovation for current and future industries. Investment and growth require a safe, stable, and crime-free environment. More importantly, it is fundamental to the aspirations of all our people to live in security, in peace, and in comfort. Police visibility, effective training, and better resourcing of police stations are our priorities. I have prioritized our response to the growing problem of criminal groups that extort money from construction and other businesses. Specialized units bringing together South African Police Service and the National Prosecuting Authority are mandated to combat these crimes of economic disruption. To support the growth of the tourism industry, the South African Police Service will increase visibility at identified tourist attraction sites. It is training tourism safety monitors, and we will establish a reserve police capacity to focus on the policing of tourist attraction areas, as we have had and experienced huge problems around those sites. Anti-gang units will be further strengthened with priority given to the Western Cape, Eastern Cape, Gauteng, and the Free State. Following the graduation of 5,000 police trainees last year, 7,000 new police trainees have been enlisted this year to strengthen local policing. To improve the quality of general and specialized South African Police Service investigations, we are establishing a crime detection university in Hammanskraal. Over the last 6 months, the nation has been galvanized across communities, government, civil society, religious groupings, the judiciary and parliament to end the crisis of violence that is perpetrated by men against the women of our country. It has been a truly united, determined response from all South Africans. Through building social compacts across society to fight this scourge, we will be able to achieve much more. But it is only the beginning of the struggle. We implemented an emergency action plan and prioritized 1.6 billion rand to support this plan until the end of this current financial year. There has been progress in several areas. We will amend the Domestic Violence Act to better protect victims in violent domestic relationships and the Sexual Offences Act to broaden the categories of sex offenders whose names must be included in the National Register for Sex Offenders. And we will pass a law to tighten bail and sentences condition in cases that involve gender-based violence. Honorable members, we will not let up our fight against corruption and state capture. We will need to work together to root out corruption and strengthen the rule of law. We should not solicit or bribe or pay bribes or engage in corrupt acts. We should upgrade our culture of reporting crime when we see it being committed. Now, this battle can only succeed if it is taken on by the whole of society, if we build a formidable social compact of all formations. We therefore welcome the work of the Joint Government and Civil Society Working Group charged with developing a national anti-corruption strategy and implementation plan, which is close to completion of its work. We plan to launch this strategy mid-year. Now, the Zondo Commission into State Capture continues with its critical work with the full support of the government and other institutions. I have received a detailed and voluminous report on the Commission of Inquiry into the Public Investment Corporation. I will make it available to the public together with a plan on taking the findings and recommendations forward in a few days. Now, as we fix the fundamentals, as we deepen the reforms we have made, we pursue a number of areas of inclusive growth. In the previous SONA, I said that it is a critical area of investment that supports structural transformation and job creation. The Infrastructure Fund implementation team has finalized the list of shovel-ready projects and has begun work to expand private investment into public infrastructure sectors with revenue streams. These include areas like student accommodation, social housing, independent water production, rail freight branch lines, embedded electricity generation, municipal bulk infrastructure, and broadband rollout. The team has a project pipeline with potential investments of over 700 billion rand over the next 10 years, including both government and non-governmental contributions. The cranes and yellow equipment that we have longed to see across the landscape of our country will once again soon be an everyday sight. The social housing program to build rental housing for low-income families is at implementation stage, which would leverage as much as 9 billion rand for private investment in the construction of 37,000 rental apartments. The young people who are at TVET and university and TVET colleges face serious accommodation challenges. Some don't even have places to sleep after lectures and resort to sleeping in libraries. We are going to spend 64 billion rand over the next years in student accommodation and will leverage at least another 64 billion in private investment. Now, these building projects are ready to start. We have been speaking about another important project for years, the Umzimvubu Dam in the Eastern Cape. We've been talking about it for more than a decade with little to show on the ground. We are determined to overcome the financial and other challenges that have held the progress back and denied the people of the Eastern Cape such a vital resource. Road construction on the site has commenced, and I will soon be visiting the site myself to ensure that we take this work forward. We are launching a tourism equity fund this year to stimulate transformation in tourism. Last year, I asked the nation to join me in dreaming, in imagining a new smart city, in imagining how we can build a truly post-apartheid city that would rise to change the social and economic apartheid spatial architecture. Now, I have news for you. A new smart city is taking shape in Gauteng, in Lanseria, which will have 350,000 to 500,000 people who will call that place home in the next decade. Now, this process is being led by the Investment and Infrastructure Office in the presidency alongside the provincial governments of Gauteng and Northwest, working together with the cities of Johannesburg, Tshwane, and Madibeng. This is a real city that is rising from the ground and going up. Now, working with development finance institutions, we have put together an innovative process that will fund the bulk sewage, electricity, water, digital infrastructure, and roads that will be the foundation of this new city. It will not only be smart and 5G ready, but will be a leading benchmark for green infrastructure continentally and internationally as well. We will be piloting an alternative township and rural roads paving program, during which we will start off with experimenting road stretches of 50 kilometers each that will be constructed in various parts of the country. And this is a very special program for me. This initiative will ensure cost-effective solutions for the state in terms of road building. It will also deliver meaningful skills to the young people in our country and has a higher potential for labor-intensive job creation than conventional road construction methods. We are confronted by the crisis of youth unemployment. Of the 1.2 million young people who enter the labor and market each year, approximately 2/3 remain outside of employment, training, and education. More than half of all young people are unemployed. This is a crisis. We need to make this country work for young people so that they can work for our country. The solution to this crisis must be two-pronged. We must all create opportunities for youth employment and self-employment. On youth employment, as from today, we begin the implementation of the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention. There are 6 priority actions that we will be taking over the next 5 years to reduce youth unemployment. Firstly, we are creating pathways for young people into the economy. We are building cutting-edge solutions to reach young people wherever they are, through online platforms, on the phone, and in person. This will allow them to receive active support, information, and work readiness training to increase their employability and match themselves to opportunities. Starting this month, we are launching 5 prototype sites in 5 provinces that will grow to a national network reaching 3 million young people through multiple channels. This will allow them to receive active support, information, and work readiness training to increase their employability. Second, we are fundamentally changing how we prepare young people for the future of work, providing shorter, more flexible courses in specific skills that employers in fast-growing sectors need. In the past, what we've often said to young people, go for training for 2 years, 3 years. And we're saying we now need to structure training opportunities for young people that are focused, that are short, so that young people can enter work quickly and be effective. Third, we are developing new and innovative ways to support youth entrepreneurship and self-employment. Fourth, we are scaling up the Youth Employment Service and working with TVET colleges and the private sector to ensure that more learners receive practical experience in the workplace to complete their training. Fifthly, we are establishing the first cohort of a presidential youth service program that will unlock the agency of young people and provide opportunities for them to earn an income while contributing to nation building. Fifthly, we will lead a youth employment initiative that will be funded by setting aside a portion of our budget to deal with the high levels of youth unemployment. And I've said to my colleagues that youth unemployment is the biggest problem that we face, and I therefore want us, through a top slicing from the budget, which will require that we all tighten our belts and redirect resources to address the national crisis of youth unemployment. Now, the Minister of Finance will prioritize this initiative and give specific details when he delivers the medium-term budget policy statement later this year. These actions will together ensure that every young person in this country has a place to go, that their energy and capabilities are properly harnessed, and that they can contribute to the growth of their communities and their country. Now, as part of this intervention, the National Youth Development Agency and the Department of Small Business Development will provide grant funding and business support to 1,000 young entrepreneurs in the next 100 days, starting tomorrow. We have invited 3 of these young entrepreneurs to join us here this evening. Siyabonga Tiwana, Sibusiso Mahone, and Tolakele Nkosi, who are here with us. There they are. They are already participating as budding participants and entrepreneurs and engineers in the programs that we are crafting for them and supporting them in. This is for real. We are going to give the young people of our country great opportunities so that they can participate in the economy. They and others like them prove that given the necessary support, young people can create their own opportunities. These 3 young entrepreneurs form part of a larger and more ambitious program that we are embarking on to assist 100,000 entrepreneurs over the next 3 years to access business skills, funding, and market facilitation. And we are going to do it. The empowerment of women is critical to inclusive economic growth. We are introducing She Trades ZA platform. She Trades ZA platform to assist women-owned businesses to participate in global value chains and markets. Over the next 5 years, the Industrial Development Corporation is targeting 10 billion rand of own and partner funding for women empowerment businesses. To create a larger market for small businesses, we plan to designate 1,000 locally produced products that must be procured from SMMEs. The procurement bill will soon be presented to Parliament as part of our efforts to empower Black and emerging businesses and advance radical economic transformation. This year, we intensify our investment drive with the establishment of an integrated investment promotion and facilitation capability coordinated from the Presidency. We will hold our third South Africa Investment Conference in November to review the implementation of previous commitments and to generate new investment in our economy. At the second South Africa Investment Conference last year, over 70 companies made investment commitments of 364 billion rand in industries as diverse as manufacturing, agro-processing, infrastructure, mining, services, tourism, and hospitality. In the first 2 years of our ambitious investment drive, we have succeeded in raising commitments totaling 664 billion rand, which is more than half of our 5-year target of 1.2 trillion rand. More importantly, these investments are having real impact. Already projects with an investment value of 9 billion have been completed and 27 projects worth just over 250 billion are in implementation phase, with more coming on stream this year. I have visited newly built factories that make smartphones and plants that produce cars, and I've walked through the dust on construction sites at several supplier parks, both in KZN and in Gauteng. We have been to the opening facilities producing goods ranging from power cables to sanitary products and to tires and to food. We have made important progress in finalizing and implementing the master plans that I spoke about in 2018 in vital parts of our economy. Now, these master plans have enabled us to focus on particular sectors of our economy, rather than just being too generalized. We have decided that we want to focus on certain sectors, build social compacts with the role players, with the owners of capital, with the workers, with communities in those various sectors. These master plans bring government, labor, and business together to develop practical measures to spur growth at sector level, and each partner contributes to making it work. Thanks in large measure to the Auto Master Plan, we sold more cars to the rest of the world last year than ever before, providing jobs for young people in the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. We launched a new Auto SEZ hub in Tshwane, which will expand production and local manufacturing of components. The Clothing and Textile Master Plan, which was signed last year, and this is signed by all the role players as they make commitments. This one aims to create 121,000 new jobs in the retail clothing and textile and footwear sector over the next few years. It involves commitments by retailers to buy goods locally, by manufacturers to invest and support transformation, and by labor to develop bargaining structures that promote agile manufacturing. For its part, government has already begun to act vigorously against illegal imports, seizing almost 400 containers with under-invoiced products in the last quarter of 2019. Now, buying locally and focusing on what is made in South Africa is an important task that we must all take. The suit that I'm wearing today, and it's a brand new suit, I must confess, was proudly made by South African workers here in Cape Town. And we would like to encourage all of us to buy South African-made goods. We completed the poultry master plan to support chicken farmers and processors and save 54,000 jobs while creating new ones. The industry is now focused on growth, greater production, and more investment. We will, within 2 weeks, set a new poultry import tariff adjustment to support local industry. We have developed a plan with farmers and industrial users to save jobs also in the sugar industry, and will finalize a sugar master plan within the next 6 weeks, and expect a new steel master plan to be finalized in the coming 6 months. Effective today, new regulations published in the Government Gazette will enable investigation and action against abuse of buyer power and price discrimination. This will help even the playing field for small businesses and emerging entrepreneurs. Market inquiries into data services, the grocery retail market, and healthcare have provided the basis for measures to reduce costs to consumers and make these sectors more competitive. The competition authorities are now working towards a resolution with the large mobile operators to secure deep cuts to data prices across prepaid monthly bundles. Now, additional discounts targeted at low-income households, a free daily allocation of data, and free access to educational and other public investment website is going to also happen. This is an important step to improve lives, bring people into the digital economy, and stimulate online businesses. The digital economy will increasingly become a very important driver of growth and a creator of employment. The Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution has made far-reaching recommendations that impact on nearly every aspect of the economy in many areas of our lives. The Commission's report provides us with the tools to ensure that we extract the greatest benefit of these revolutionary technological changes. An important condition for the success of our digital economy is the availability of high-demand spectrum to expand broadband access and reliability. Now, the regulator, ICASA, has undertaken to conclude the licensing of high-demand spectrum for industry via auction before the end of 2020. Because of additional requirements, the licensing of the Wireless Open Access Network, or the WOAN, is likely to be completed during the course of next year. Agriculture is one of the industries with the greatest potential for growth. This year, we implement key recommendations of the Presidential Advisory Panel on Land Reform and Agriculture to accelerate land redistribution, expand agricultural production, and transform the industry. Government stands ready, following the completion of the parliamentary process, to amend Section 25 of the Constitution to table an expropriation bill that outlines the circumstances under which expropriation of land without compensation will be possible. To date, we have released 44,000 hectares of state land for the settlement of land restitution claims, and will this year release around 700,000 hectares of state land for agricultural production under the leadership of the Deputy President. We are prioritizing youth, women. We are prioritizing youth, women, people with disabilities, and those who have been farming on communal land and are ready to expand their operations for training and allocation of land. A new beneficiary selection policy includes compulsory training for potential beneficiaries before land can be allocated to them. Because of the drought in many parts of the country, farmers have lost their crops and livestock, and many workers have lost their jobs and their livelihoods. Working with the Agricultural Research Council and other scientific and agricultural bodies, we have developed drought mitigation strategies that focus on developing drought-resistant seeds, planting and storing fodder, removing of invasive plants, and management strategies to prevent soil degradation. This year, we will open up and regulate the commercial use of hemp products, providing opportunities for small-scale farmers. This is our approach to the opportunities that are offered by cannabis farming, which happens throughout the country. We will formulate policy on the use of cannabis products for medicinal purposes to build this industry in line with global trends. The regulatory steps, I can see when I talk about cannabis, people get quite excited. I begin to wonder whether they are excited because they know about it or know how it is used or are users themselves. Now, a fundamental condition for growth and development is a healthy and productive population with access to quality and affordable health care. We have noted the enthusiastic support from South Africans during the public hearings on the National Health Insurance and are putting in place mechanisms for the implementation following conclusion of the parliamentary process. Now, in preparation for the NHI, we have already registered more than 3,000 clinics. And we have already registered more than 44 million people at over 3,000 clinics in the electronic health patient registration system. Now, I have established the Presidential Working Group on Disability to advise my office on measures to advance the empowerment of persons with disabilities as government plans, budgets, and implements its programs. Following the recognition by the Department of Basic Education in 2018 of South African Sign Language as a home language, and the recommendation by the Parliamentary Constitutional Review Committee that it be the 12th official language, we are now poised to finalize this matter. Now, earlier this week, I returned from Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia, where South Africa assumed the chairship of the African Union for 2020. We take up this responsibility at an important time for our continent. This year, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement comes into effect. This is our moment as the people of the continent to give effect to the dreams of the founding fathers of African unity. South Africa will host the extraordinary summit of the AU in May this year, where we will finalize the modalities of the Free Trade Area Agreement before implementation, and side by side with that summit, we will also hold a summit on silencing the guns on our continent. Here we will finalize on the AFCTA the rules that define what is made in Africa, the tariff lines that will be reduced to zero over the next 5 years, and the services sector that will be opened up across the continent. Now, allow me to take this opportunity to congratulate our compatriot, Wamkele Mene, who was this past weekend elected as the first Secretary General of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Now, he will depart and be based in Ghana, which is the seat of the AFCTA, and we assure him of our full support as he assumes his historic and challenging responsibility. South Africa has therefore prioritized the empowerment of Africa's women during its term as AU chair, working together with all member states on measures that we all need to take to promote the financial inclusion, the preferential procurement, and preferential trade arrangements for women. The AU heads of states have pledged their support for measures to end gender-based violence on the continent and will work towards the adoption of an AU Convention on Violence Against Women during the course of this year. Through the Africa Peer Review Mechanism, South Africa will work with other countries to advance good governance and democracy. We will use all the means at our disposal, including the membership of the UN Security Council, to promote peace and security on our continent. Honorable members, everything that we must do must be underpinned by effective implementation. That is why we've developed the district development model, a unique form of social compacting that involves the key role players in every district so that we can unlock the development and economic opportunities in all areas of our country. It builds the capability of the state where it has most been broken. During the State of the Nation address in 2019 in February, I addressed the 5 most urgent tasks of the moment. Key amongst them was the need to strengthen the capacity of the state to address the needs of our people. A broad range of critical work is being done across government to strengthen the capacity of local government as the sphere of government closest to the people, so that it can achieve its developmental mandate of finding sustainable ways to meet the social, economic, and material needs of communities and improve the quality of their lives. Provincial and national government will redouble their efforts to support and strengthen the capacity of municipalities, as is required by Section 154 of the Constitution. And we will also redouble our efforts to monitor and to support the municipalities across our country. It is only when the structured support has failed that the provincial executive or the national government will invoke Section 139 to intervene in strengthening local government. Currently, there are 40 municipalities in the country that have been subjected to such intervention. The measures that will be taken will complement the objectives of the new district development model that seeks to take an integrated approach to service delivery. The residents of Mamusa municipality in Northwest are the people who have already seen the actual practical workings of the district development model as they had to deal with a municipality that had collapsed. And through the district development model, we were able to ensure that the various services that had collapsed are actually re-established. This year, we plan to expand this district development model to 23 new districts, drawing on lessons from the 3 pilot districts that we have already been to: OR Tambo District Municipality, eThekwini, and Waterberg District Municipality. Now, to strengthen the capacity of the state and increase accountability, I will be signing performance agreements with all ministers before the end of this month. These agreements, which are based on the targets contained in the medium-term strategic framework, will be made public so that the people of South Africa can hold those who they have elected into office to account. We see these performance agreements as the cornerstone of a new culture of transparency and accountability, where those who are given the responsibility to serve, whether as elected office bearers or public servants, do so as expected of them. It is a culture where corruption, nepotism, and patronage are not tolerated, and action is taken against those who abuse their power or steal public money. Since I took office, we have built and have been building capacity in the presidency and elsewhere in the state to fast-track progress on a clear list of urgent reforms. We have established the Project Management Office, the Infrastructure and Investment Unit, and the Policy and Research Services to address obstacles to reform and improve government delivery. These units are working closely with the Presidential Infrastructure Coordinating Commission, Invest SA, and the Ease of Doing Business Task Team to remove impediments to investment and growth and ensure that government demonstrates visible progress quickly. With an efficient and capable machinery now in place at the center of government, we will focus on the most urgent reforms and intervene where necessary to ensure implementation. We find, as South Africans ourselves, at a decisive moment in our history. It is a time of great difficulty and doubt, but also a time laden with great opportunities. Over the last 2 years, we have worked together to build a foundation for progress. Now is the time to build on that foundation, to unite, to work, and to persevere. We will not surrender our future to doubt or despair or division or to those who are permanently negative to the work that is being done to improve the lives of our people. We will continue with our onward march to improve the lives of our people. We will embrace change. We will cherish life. We will fear nothing. As we do so, we will recall the inspired lyrics of one of South Africa's most treasured musicians, Ubaba Joseph Shabalala, the founder of Ladysmith Black Mambazo, whose passing we mourn this week. Ubaba Joseph Shabalala wrote, but he wrote in a different era, and his words still ring true. And he wrote, open quotes, "We face high mountains, must cross rough seas. We must make our place in history and live with dignity. As we climb to reach our destiny, a new age has begun." I thank you.
Thank you very much. I take this opportunity to thank the President for an inspiring address. Members and guests should please remain at their